Since the beginning of time, there has been the age-old debate of whether seed oil or butter. But luckily, there has been a recent study that looks at the implications of these two products on human health across a period of 33 years. So once and for all, we will know, is seed oil or butter better? Firstly, let's look at why people don't like seed oils. So seed oils include things like canola, sunflower, or soybean. And the reason why people don't like them, or rather the arguments that seed oil critics have, is that they are highly refined, they do not have high cooking temperatures, and that they're high in omega-6 fatty acids. So omega-3 and omega-6, we'll come back to them later in the video, so super important to remember. The standard with omega-6 and omega-3 is that for every, say, one omega-3 fatty acid, there are 4 omega-6 fatty acids, so a ratio of 1 to 4, 1 omega-3 fatty acid, 4 omega-6 fatty acids. And the way it's seen is that if a food or fat, oil, whatever, has a high omega-6 fatty acid content, so we're thinking 40 to 1, 40 omega-6 to 1 omega-3, it's considered not good for you, and chances are it's quite highly processed. So a lot of trans fats have a very high omega-6 to omega-1 profile. So they're usually used in things like biscuits because they have a high shelf life, things like that. But I digress, back to seed oils. So the seed oil critics basically say it leads to obesity and other chronic diseases, and so they think that butter is the better option. But on the flip side, what do butter critics think? So dairy products are typically higher in saturated fats, and since butter is a dairy product, the butter critics say that it is very high in saturated fats, which leads to heart disease and high bad cholesterol, which is LDL cholesterol. And so they say that seed oils are the better option and that they lead to longevity and they prevent a lot of other diseases that butter can cause. All right, the moment that everyone's been waiting for, the results. Have them in my hand right here, and for dramatic effect, let's add in a drum roll. So here's right. This study looked at over 220,000 Americans over a period of up to 33 years, and these are the findings. So people with the highest level of butter intake had a 15% higher risk of death compared to those with the lowest intake of butter. And there's more juicy facts. Seed oils not only didn't increase the chance of death, but overall had a 16% lower risk of death. So essentially it's saying that seed oils reduce the cause of all-cause mortality, whereas butter actually increased the chance of all-cause mortality. And it gets even more interesting from there. Specific oils had different benefits per 5-gram increase daily. Canola oil saw a 15% lower cause of mortality risk. Olive oil, 8% lower, soybean, 6% lower. So this means that per 5 grams of the fats I just listed consumed every day, with olive oil, for example, consuming 5 grams extra olive oil led to an 8% lower mortality risk. This kind of information can actually be quite confronting for some people because dietary practice in particular tend to be passed down from generations or from families. And so it can be quite in your face when someone's like, what you've been eating, what your family's been eating has not been right. And so these types of things do take time to change, but just make sure you get your information from reputable sources and have an open mind. Now, remember that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio I talked about at the very beginning, the 4 to 1? It's coming back here. With canola oil, we have a ratio of 2 to 1 and soybean 7 to 1. This means that with the canola oil, for every 2 omega-6 fatty acids, there is 1 omega-3 fatty acid. And so this is relatively low, and even with the soybean 7 to 1, it's around the 4 to 1 mark, so it's okay, it's considered healthy. Moving on to the more traditional fats. Butter has a ratio of 10 to 1 and lard has a ratio of 16 to 1. This means that with lard, for example, for every 1 omega-3 fatty acid, there are 16 omega-6 fatty acids. And so they deviate quite a lot from the healthy 4 to 1 or lower. And so this is one of the reasons why that these are considered less healthy compared to seed oils. So what are the healthiest forms of fats to use? We have flaxseed oil, 4 to 1, very standard, it's healthy. We have chia seed oil, which has a ratio of 3:1, and canola oil, which has a ratio of 2:1. And here's where it gets interesting. Everything in the space of health and nutrition always has a big fat but, and this is where it comes in. Olive oil and avocado oil have a ratio of 12:1, which is pretty high, and yes, it's even higher than butter. But even though they do have a high ratio, they are still considered healthy for the following reasons. With olive oil, for example, when looking at a serve of olive oil, even though it does have more omega-6 fatty acids, in an actual serve, it's not that high. And another reason is that olive oil is 73% made up of monounsaturated fats, MUFAs for short, which have a lot of oleic acid. And oleic acid is linked to reduced inflammation, lower LDL cholesterol, so that's bad cholesterol, and improved heart health, and it's also full of antioxidants. Avocado oil as well is also quite similar, except it has more vitamin E. And so that's why even though these fats do have a high ratio, they are an exception. And it's also one of the reasons why Mediterranean diets are considered the healthiest in the world, because they use quite a lot of olive oil, and as we've seen, seed oils, well, some kinds can increase longevity and increase heart health, things like that. Before I let you go contemplate your life oil choices, there is one more thing that's really important to be considerate of, and that's the cooking temperature. So things like extra virgin olive oil, it's called extra virgin olive oil because it is much less processed than plain olive oil. And so the oil tastes great for cooking, for like sauteing, dressing, stuff like that, but it's not recommended to use extra virgin olive oil for deep frying. For stuff like that, normal olive oil or things like canola, better as I have a higher cooking temperature and there's less risk of oxidation, which basically means oil goes off. So butter has, excuse the pun, melted under pressure, and seed oil has come out on top. And it's also important to note that not all oil is made equal. So while seed oil is good, some seed oils, so corn for example, has an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 46:1, which is super, super high. And even in the study, it was seen that corn oil increased, not by a lot, but marginally increased the chance of death. And since it wasn't statistically significant, it was kind of dismissed. But it's just important to know that not everything's equal. So if someone says seed oil, for example, is great for you, don't just go out eating any random seed oil. Like, consider it, do some research, things like that, and always talk to a nutritionist or specialized person if you're going to make any major changes, or just, want a little help, a little motivation. We're always here. Now that you're an oil connoisseur, make sure to share with your family and friends so that they too can make the healthy choice for them. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video, what you want to see next, and wishing you all happy digestive systems until the next one.